Ever pinch pennies all year for that one family vacation only to feel the budget blues afterwards? If so, I was just like you. After 3 vacationless years, I stumbled on credit card rewards travel and cracked the code to amazing vacations that I could actually afford.
Welcome to Wonderland On Points. In this podcast, you will discover how opening credit cards strategically can save you thousands on travel. We're not just dreamers anymore. We're 2 adventurous moms turning dreams into reality. Join us as we spill all the points and miles secrets.
And contrary to popular belief, you don't have to spend $1 million to earn 1,000,000 points. Traveling on credit card points isn't reserved for those with overflowing bank accounts. It's for everyday people like you and me, learning to turn routine expenses into free travel.
Consider us your points travel guides. This is Wonderland On Points. Let the adventure begin. Welcome back, everybody. It's time for another episode of Wonderland On Points. And today we're going to a really unique destination with our friend Kelly from the Points and Miles doc. We're going all the way to China, Joe.
Yes, and we are so excited about it. We heard all kinds of amazing tips from Kelly. She is so good at the details. It's a super well-documented trip. She's got lots of gorgeous video and her highlights, and we're just excited because it's one of those destinations that I think people get a little bit hesitant about, and we're excited to break that down for you and really make you see why this is probably somewhere that should be on your bucket list.
Yeah, I don't know a lot of people who have visited China. I've known a couple people who have moved to China, oddly enough, in my personal life, but not a lot of people who have visited there. But I have seen content from those who have moved there, one of which is actually a pretty interesting story. There was a guy that I was friends with in college. We were in the same grader friend group. You know, we went to a couple sorority dances together. And after college, you know, on Facebook, I noticed he moved to China, I think to maybe volunteer in some way in China. And next thing you know, so he was tall. He's like 6'4", this guy. We used to always comment on how tall he was. And in China, I guess it's more rare to be that tall and to be that tall of a pretty good-looking American. And so he started getting noticed and getting these opportunities to be in film and television, and he's now like a bona fide Chinese movie star. I kid you not. He is in movies. He is on TV. He is a Chinese celebrity, and he went to college with me. It was pretty wild.
Oh, that is the craziest thing that I've ever heard. I love it.
Yeah. Pretty crazy. So I do see some content of how beautiful China is with him, but that's what I was thinking of when we were preparing for this episode, because he's the person that, you know, I just have seen talking about China the most, which is pretty crazy and random. Well, guys, we got a exciting thing going on for this episode because we are actually sponsored this episode by card pointers. You guys have heard us talking about card pointers. We have come to really know and love card pointers, and they're now sponsoring an episode for us.
They are, and we could not be more excited to work with them because, as you have heard a lot from us recently, we are truly obsessed. And one of the main features of card pointers that we love so much is their best card wizard. If you've ever stood in the checkout for somewhere, especially when it's moving quickly and you realize you're not exactly sure which card you're supposed to use, you start to get that frantic feeling of like, how do I go check my benefits as quickly as possible so I
want to
can
do it
figure
right.
out
I want to use the right card.
I know. And then if you've ever had the feeling of walking out of a store realizing you used the wrong card, that is the worst. That is the worst
it is.
Feeling. So Card Pointers solves this problem for you. They make it so easy. Their best card wizard will show you instantly which card will earn you the most points for every single purchase. It's like having a little points expert right in your pocket saying, use this one.
A little mini points expert.
I love it.
I definitely have used this at CVS. I don't know why I always forget what card to use at CVS, but I do. And I will be there and I'm thinking, okay, maybe I'll just use my Venture X. At least I know I get 2 times points. But the other day, I was like, no. this is exactly what Card Pointers is for, that best card wizard. So I typed in CVS and realized, oh, duh, I have a Chase Freedom Flex that gets 3 times back at drugstores. So it really saved me there. And it made me feel more confident that, okay, I really did make the right call. I knew which card to use.
Yeah, it's perfect for that. And another thing I was thinking about is some of us are really great at remembering which card to use where when it's places we're going to again and again in our daily lives. Like that's almost
Right.
habit. But like when you're traveling, when you're going places you don't often go, or even when you're booking your travel, that best card wizard comes in so clutch, as the kids would say. Do the kids still say that? I don't even
I
know.
don't know.
I don't know. I maybe not. Maybe I've just dated myself. But it's so helpful for traveling, especially because even when you're on a trip, you still want to be using the best card. You know you're going to be spending money on trips. You want to be getting the best multipliers. So I just think it's absolutely perfect for that. We love card pointers. We love the best card wizard, and we're really excited to be working with them. And we hope you guys take advantage and explore this incredible app.
So if you want to try out Card Pointers, we have a link for you. You can go to cardpointers.com/Wonderland on Points. You will get 30% off. And if there is, for some reason, some other kind of further sale, our link will always have the best deal, but 30% off is incredible. So cardpointers.com/Wonderland on Points. And now it's time to go to China, Joe.
It's time. Let's roll the episode with our favorite Kelly, the Points and Miles doc.
Well, today we are so excited that we have back another 2-time guest, our favorite surgeon from California. It is Kelly, the Points and Miles doc, and we are just so happy to have you back, Kelly.
Oh, thanks so much for having me. I love talking to y'all.
We love talking to you too. We're so happy you're here. And are you going to be at Travel More with us in October this year?
I sure am. I am going to be at Travel More Con. I am speaking.
Wonderful.
So I'm
Yes,
so
that's what I
excited.
thought.
Yes, and so are you, right?
We are. So I guess this is a good moment to give everybody a very shameless plug to go buy tickets to the conference. 'Cause
Yes.
look at all the people that you get to come here if you do that.
You
I
can
learned
hear
so
us
much
in real
last
life.
year. No matter how long you do this, how much of an expert you are, all the talks, everybody brings such cool information, things that you didn't know, that I think anybody from a brand new, someone who's just getting into Points and Miles, to people who've been doing it for a long time and are experts, it's a great weekend for everybody because you get to hang out together. You get to talk about your favorite thing that maybe other people in your life are sick of hearing you talk about, and
Yes.
kind of nerd out on
All
all
the
the
time.
Points and Miles stuff.
Yes.
Well, today we are going to get into your recent trip to China, which you posted about a lot of pictures and videos on your Instagram that were just beyond words. The beauty was just beyond words. So much history, so much stunning architecture, delicious food. I mean, so much good stuff over on your Instagram account at Points and Miles doc. So everybody go check that out. So let's go ahead and get into it. Before we get into your actual itinerary and the places that you visited, tell us what airline you flew to get over there, what points were required for your trip. Give us all that good flight stuff.
Yeah, well, I'll just start by saying I know China isn't the most traditional location to go. And when people ask me, where are you going next? And I said China, they were like, oh, okay. That's nice. Not the typical like, cool, send us tips. It was like, okay, be safe. I'm like, no,
Are
I
you
feel
sure?
very, very safe. um, but it's a place I've been once before, and it's a place that my P2, my spouse, has been 18, now 20 times
Oh,
actually
wow.
since we went. So it was a place that I
Holy
wanted to
cow.
go back, yeah, and get to explore a little bit more of the country. And I actually went in medical school on a medical trip. So it was very enlightening that I got to see some of the national infrastructure around healthcare, which was really interesting. And then got to see the Great Wall and some sites around Beijing. So that was a really wonderful experience as a student. But getting to go back as an adult with points and some funds, certainly makes the trip quite a bit different. So We flew Cathay over to Hong Kong, which is a fantastic airline, just fantastic business and first class product, and pretty easy to find award availability. They used to have tons of partner award availability in One World programs. So you used to be able to find lots of seats in American and Alaska reward programs. And since COVID, they've really brought it into their own program, Asia Miles. But Asia Miles is a transfer partner of American Express, is a transfer partner of Citi and Capital One and Built. So
Lots of options.
Lots of options to transfer over. And their rates it's a distance-based program, but the rates for getting there from LA in business, LA to Hong Kong, is 84,000 miles per person. So when you think, this is a 13 to 15 hour flight, depending on which way you're going, that's a pretty good rate for getting across the Pacific. And then from Hong Kong, we flew either low-cost airlines or other alliance airlines, some of which I booked on points, but flights that were no more than 2 to 3 hours that we simply flew in economy. So that's how I booked it. On the way back, which was a real treat, I booked Cathay first, which was it was one of those dream products I've always wanted to try. There's only 6 seats in the cabin. They do caviar and pajamas, and the seat is just humongous. It's 125,000 points per person. But again, still to get across the Pacific in a 13 to 15 hour flight, depending on the winds, with first class lounge access and all the wonderful food and drink, it was really a worthwhile splurge and a wonderful product. So that was our in and out, Cathay in, Cathay out, and booked the awards through their own program.
Okay. Just out of curiosity, any idea what that first class would cost if it was a cash ticket, like a ballpark?
Oh, I should look at my spreadsheet, but I think it was around
a spreadsheet.
Of course, I have
Of
a
course.
spreadsheet to calculate everything.
Absolutely.
But I do believe it was around 10,000 per person if you were to book it with cash. Oh, I've got it pulled up here. I guess the booking at the time was even more, like 14,000 per person. As if anybody would pay that. There was one other person in the cabin. That ended up being an 11 cents per point redemption for that.
Amazing.
The taxes and fees are actually quite low. It was around $160 per person. So
that's not bad at all.
Yeah, in the grand scheme of things, I think Asia Miles to get from the West Coast to China or even the East Coast is a really good program that people should look into. It's not a unicorn. You can find availability. I think it's just not very often talked about, and they don't tend to pass on the really high fees and surcharges like some programs like British Airways would, for example. So
that's incredible. And honestly, that's how you want the flight to be that long when you're experiencing a product like that, I would think.
Sometimes it's not long enough. Yes.
That's right. Can I ask a question about when you're going to China? I think a lot of people, as you mentioned, it's not a destination that some people just immediately think, oh, let's go to China. There's a little bit of fear maybe from a lot of people and just unknown about what does it look like? Like, how do you get a visa? Is there any red tape that's a little trickier with visiting China that we don't experience other places? What's that process?
Yeah. Great question, Mary Ellen. Traditionally, you've needed to have a visa to go, even as a tourist. And so I actually applied for my visa, I think in December. I used a service called CIBT. I asked my spouse, hey, what service do you use to get your work visas when you go over there? And that's what she uses. It's a service that takes all of your paperwork to the embassy and then gets the visa for you and mails you your passport back. Or in my case, because I'm local and there's an embassy here, is able to go pick it up at the office locally, which was really nice. I think that service was around $300. And even though I just requested a short tourism visa, they gave me a 10-year unlimited entry visa. So I'm like, oh, I got to use this and go back. And that's in my passport now. Right after I applied for the visa, China announced they'll be doing up to 10 days visa-free tourism visits for Americans.
Okay.
Oh,
So
wow.
I don't know if I haven't heard from anybody who has tested it yet. There's always been a 24-hour transit visa. If you're in and out within 24 hours, you don't need to pay for a visa. But now they're doing the 10-day visa-free stay. So for a lot of people, that would be just a nice way to introduce yourself to the country, maybe go stay for a couple of days and check it out and not have to pay anything additional for the visa.
Feel like 10 days is enough. It's such a massive place.
Think of it like the US. Even from a geography standpoint, the West is dry and mountainous. The East is like the east of the US. You've got the mid-Atlantic, like Shanghai. You've got the North, Beijing has 4 seasons, just like New England. So you can think about it, the size and almost the geographical climates of the US. We actually did 10 days on the ground. So we had a little bit of an ambitious trip, and I'll tell you a little bit more about that. Well, we wanted to stay in the Aman hotels. And again, I'll tell you a little bit more about that specific goal. But it ended up being 2 nights in Shanghai, 2 nights in Hangzhou, which is an eastern city, about 2 hours drive from Shanghai, so not far. And then 3 nights in Lijiang, which is in the southwest of the country in the mountains, and 2 nights in Chengdu, which is in the Sichuan province. And a lot of people know it because of the panda base there. We actually did not overnight in Hong Kong at all. We were very lucky that our connections were able to spend maybe only a few hours, less than a few hours in the Hong Kong airport and just directly get to our destination. I really like that because sometimes for positioning, of course, for our awards, we have to overnight near an airport. You just have to stay. It's the way that it's going to work out. But sometimes if you can just push to the end and get to your destination, man, and you can wake up in your destination, that is just
The way to
adds that.
go.
Yeah. And so we pushed all the way to Shanghai that first night, ended up getting to the hotel after midnight, but it was so wonderful to wake up in our hotel the next morning rather than having to overnight in Hong Kong, come back to the airport early the next morning and get there. So
Wow.
but yeah, I think 10 days is enough. I probably wouldn't do coast to coast, but you could do one of the regions. You could do the East, you could do the West and Sichuan. And their infrastructure for getting around is actually fantastic. Think of Japan and the bullet trains. They've got bullet trains. They had airlines that connected some of the small towns we were going to. That made it really easy to plan because we didn't have to connect. Everywhere was a direct either flight, train, or drive. We actually did not end up taking a train. It was an option, but just to save time, we ended up having a drive between Shanghai and Hangzhou. But think of, and this is something I learned, again, the infrastructure for getting around is absolutely fantastic. So once you get there, expect to be able to get around very, very easily.
Amazing. So that part is not like the US, is what you're telling me.
Exactly. And I was surprised even how some of these smaller airports, their small cities still have like 20 million people in them. And some of these small town airports were gorgeous and beautiful and modern and had flights very frequently throughout the day. So it was a really nice surprise and did make it easy to get around.
Well, I feel like you kind of gave us the rundown of the itinerary already. So you started in Shanghai.
Yeah, the point of our trip was to stay in the Aman hotels. So that's why we had this very chaotic itinerary. But I'll tell you a little bit about that. So Aman Hotels, we've become really big fans. They're a luxurious hotel chain. They have sites all throughout the world. And we had a chance to stay in two hotels prior. We stayed in Aman in Wyoming. It's outside of Jackson. During COVID, actually, so the rates were really inexpensive. And then we stayed in Aman last year when we went to India and did our tiger safari. And so I'm so enamored with these hotels because they usually only have a limited number of suites or villas. You feel like you're the only ones there. The service is excellent. Usually everything is included, or at least there's partial board. And you just feel completely relaxed when you're at these locations. So we've been really interested in these Aman hotels. Now, most of them, they have no points program, and most of them are over $1,000 a night throughout the world. So I've kind of been on this mission to find the Aman hotels where it's less than $1,000 a night, or some of the least expensive ones in the world, and those are in China. And I'll say that China is a place you can get a 5-star vacation for 2-star prices.
I did notice that during my research.
Yes.
I mean, I was blown away, even just at like the Hyatt categories for like a Park Hyatt or an Alila or an Andaz, where we would be paying so many points. And it's like, oh, this Park Hyatt is 20,000 points a night? What?
Or category 4, you can use your free night certificate sometimes.
Yeah.
So think of China. I mean, Japan, Korea, and China. Think of, sharing this tumultuous history, having similar like historical things you can see, like cherry blossom season and the same types of architecture. And the exchange rate in Japan is really good right now, so everybody's going. But the cost in China is simply so much less that you can get so much more for your money. And
amazing.
So that was really a fun exercise in just saying, oh, wow, we visited 3 of the 4 Amans in China, and they were all very reasonably priced. The way that I actually ended up getting points out of these bookings was through something that's not available anymore. But when Mr. and Mrs. Smith was being acquired by Hyatt, or being integrated into Hyatt, before the programs were integrated, you could buy gift cards for Mr. and Mrs. Smith on the Hyatt website. Maybe you saw this deal. It was at the end of 2023, I believe. Maybe until March 2024. And for every $300 in gift cards you spent, you got an elite night credit. And if you put it on your Hyatt credit card, you got something like 11 points per dollar, like something
amazing.
Wild.
Yes, that's great.
So it made me wish I would have bought more.
It's hard to know at the time. It's so scary buying things, just kind of preemptively thinking, oh, I'm going to use this at some point. But it's still scary.
It is scary. I'm not a speculative buyer, but I had started to look in the Mr. and Mrs. Smith program and say, oh, it's not really a program. It's more of a database for lots of independent boutique hotels and also really high-end hotels. And it turns out that Aman hotels were mostly included in the Mr. and Mrs. Smith program. So I think I ended up buying $4,200 worth of gift cards, which again seemed kind of scary. I got like 17 elite nights out of it. I got something like 91,000 points, Hyatt points out of this deal.
Amazing.
And it paid for our entire 7 nights of stays at Aman's in China. So
that's like a whole sign-up bonus. Think of spend required for a sign-up bonus, a welcome offer. And that's what you just did. You got yourself a whole nother Hyatt welcome offer with this trip.
So I'm so you could have lucky, that it worked out. But that's how I ended up getting the gift cards. And then I booked everything online through Mr. and Mrs. Smith with the gift cards. And that's how it went. So it did end up being a points earning opportunity.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And just for our budget listeners, like literally every single place that you went, I looked up on the Hyatt app. Now, there are not all like gorgeous spas out in the middle of like a preserved forest that got replanted there, which is so cool. But There are gorgeous, amazing, affordable options in each place that you can book on points. So even if you hear Kelly talking about something incredible and you're like, we don't have the cash for that right now, you can still go. You can still see all the things and explore. And someday you will go back after you save or come across a really great gift card deal that you'll purchase at the time. And then you can go back for your fancy spa hotel. But I don't want anybody to like turn the episode off and be like, this episode's not for me. You don't have to be staying at these hotels to have this incredible trip.
No.
Don't delay your trip to China.
No.
Is the point.
And just, yes. And just to put in context, like one of the Amans, there's an Aman in Utah, Amangiri, which is $4,000 to $5,000 a night. You know, the level of these hotels, just to give you that differential there, in the US, the same level is costing you $4,000 to $5,000. In China, you know, we got 7 nights for the same price, for the price of one. So think these were running between $600 and $800 a night, and it was absolutely the top end of top end, as you could imagine.
Yeah.
So yes, this is the top end. There are lots and lots of other places to see and do and experience. And the hospitality in China is extremely good. Just like throughout Asia, Southeast Asia, they have that sense of hospitality. It's very, very good. And
amazing.
So wherever you go, I don't think you could go wrong. And you can have a fantastic budget vacation on points. That would be luxurious for a very small number of points if you can just get yourself there. So.
Yeah. Well, and you gave us some very doable and fun ways to get ourselves there. So I love that. I do want to recommend that people go watch your highlight bubble from this trip, though, because the first hotel had what appeared to be an outdoor bathtub. I almost died. Is that what that big stone square? Okay. I mean, just send me to heaven right now.
That's
the
right.
second one had a cat. So
it did have a cat, yes.
And with the cat.
I was like, sign me up. I'm done. Like, I need nothing else to convince me. We can end the episode right here.
I was pleasantly surprised to learn cats are everywhere. They think cats are lucky. Even the stray cats and the feral cats, they take care of them. And the government actually spays and neuters them and then clips their ear so you can see that they're being taken care of by the government, which is just so fantastic. So when a cat shows up at your door, it's got a collar, it's like, hey, I'm here to hang out with you. I'm going to come in for a while. Okay, I'm going to go now.
My dream.
It was great. They were everywhere.
Oh, yep. It's made for me.
And they looked to be in good shape too. It wasn't a sad thing.
Large cat populations can be very sad in some places.
Yes.
Tell us about some of the things that you guys did. So I do think you did a little bit of hiking. There was a lot of beautiful nature involved in this trip. What were some of the destinations that you guys explored for hiking?
Yeah. So the first one that we explored, Shanghai, we were a little bit outside of the city, and it's a huge city. So outside of parks, just like a place like New York City, you won't have immediate access to nature. But just 2 hours away in Hangzhou, there is a historic district called the Westlake District, and they have a huge amount of mountains and trails that are all preserved as part of a national park system. And what I love about China is that, everything is crowded, right? There's just lots of people and everybody's there. And you go up this super crowded trail up to the temple and you turn behind it and there's nobody there. And you have the trail all to yourself. So they say, 80% of the people go to 10% of the places. And as soon as you get off of the main drag or the main area, you are in these beautiful hiking trails, and they had places to charge your iPhone along the way. I'm like, this is brilliant.
Out in the middle of the forest?
Yes. Like it was an emergency pole where you can charge your phone or hit emergency. They were well marked. They were clean. There was some lovely hiking around this Westlake trail system, and All Trails, shout out to All Trails. I've always just used the free version, but after this, I'm like, I'm going to pay for a subscription because they had the trails, even in this area, all completely marked out. It was separate, whether it was a mountain trail or a temple trail with steps, so
Wow.
We've always had really good experiences with all trails as
yes.
well. We do that on a lot of our trip planning. Yeah, it's a great resource.
Yes. So that was one area. A much bigger area for hiking and outdoors is in the southwest. So Yunnan province, we were in Lijiang, which is a big tourist town. Again, small town for them, I think 7 or 8 million people. Very historic town, UNESCO World Heritage Site. It's been protected. It's about 9,000 feet up the town. And then some of the nearby mountains are getting into the 13, 14, 15,000 feet.
Wow.
The town is in the foothills of something called the Jade Dragon Mountain. So, really special mountain, not for skiing, more for climbing, mountaineering. And this area, when you look at a map, is surprisingly close to northern Vietnam, northern Thailand. So you can get some of that same feel. Oh, these are big mountains. And it was cool and dry. The climate was absolutely gorgeous. Sunny, cool and dry, just like the US, like Southwest, maybe
And you were
in
there in
March.
April, right? That's the time of year?
In March. Yeah.
March, okay.
Yeah. So it was really beautiful. Cherry blossoms everywhere. Really gorgeous place. Lots of hiking, lots of biking, lots of outdoor things to do in the area, whatever your flavor is. And our hotel helped arrange a lot of that. We
That's
did it in
nice.
a way that we kind of stayed away from the main tourist sites and then ended up biking through a small town where there was no one else on the road. It was amazing. So again, you don't really think of China as like this outdoor destination, yet they've got these beautiful mountains, high altitude desert, tropical mountains. I mean, really has everything. And then that was all of our outdoor experiences in Chengdu. Chengdu is in the valley in Sichuan, which has lots and lots of mountains around it, which is where the pandas naturally exist. I said, I want to go out hiking, look for a panda. They said it's exceedingly hard to find one in the wild, but one of our guides was like, come back and I'll take you sometime. But it was really fun to see them in the panda base instead, which is their big breeding center.
Oh, I looked through those highlights as well and in love. I'm in love.
I've
I
never,
want to hear more about that.
I've never considered taking my big like safari camera to what can seem like a zoo a little bit, but the way they are raising these animals and they kind of raise them in different ways, some to reintegrate into the wild, some to breed. They've been very, very successful. I think they've bred over 800 pandas through the program, and there's somewhere around 2,000 left in the wild. So they've substantially increased the population. The center is like a big Disneyland. It's clean, it's well marked, there's pathways everywhere. And then they bring the pandas out essentially for eating times is when they're most active. So they're active in the morning for their breakfast and they're active in the afternoon for their snack. And they're active when it's cold. And we were really lucky that we happened to be there on a cold day. So while it was maybe a little uncomfortable to be outside that long in the cold, it meant that we were seeing the pandas and a couple of 18-month-olds. And that's what I have the video on in my highlights. We sat and watched them for an hour and a half, just bat at each other and play. It was so cute. And you're like, how can something this silly exist in the wild? And I guess they're not that good at existing in the wild, which is why they need some help, but they're still really, really magical to watch. And it's really cool to see how successful they've been with this program. So
That's amazing. Do you remember what it costs to go in there?
we booked a tour through Viator. Actually, we booked a private tour guide who speaks English and is a local, picked us up at our hotel and took us around, just the two of us, throughout the panda base. And I highly recommend that. I think it was, I don't know, maybe $75 a person. So not very expensive. I think if you went on your own, a ticket is about $20. So much more, but it included the ride, some waters, of course. I think being walked around and she say, okay, we're going to go to this section, not this section, because this panda is really popular right now, but there's a long wait to see her. So if we go over here, we'll get to see the babies. So that
She
having
just
that
had insider information.
it's what she does. She said she was a teacher and this was her side job, but she goes 3 to 4 times a week.
Wow.
So she really had good insight in the different locations to go. We were there for about 4 or 5 hours and we saw maybe 30% of the park. So just to put it in
Wow, it's
context, how big it
huge.
is. We didn't even go to the middle or the north. We stayed completely on the south side. So
Wow.
if you intend to see more, definitely book a multi-day tour or get a private tour guide who is going to really
And it's only
maximize your time
pandas.
there.
There's no
There's red
rides or
pandas.
other animals.
There's giant pandas and red pandas.
Okay.
Red pandas.
They were so cute. They were all sleeping when we saw them, but they live essentially in an open pen that you can walk through. And they were so cute.
I love it. So you would definitely recommend that, especially if people are coming there with their kids. I'd imagine that's probably something they're not going to want to miss.
Yeah, this is something that it's worth going out of your way for. The two things to do in Chengdu. Chengdu's traditionally been a very industrial city, but when we got there, it felt actually quite calm. It didn't feel overwhelming. I was expecting to kind of come down from my nature high and have a little bit of a buzzkill being back in the city. And I didn't experience that at all. I felt it was easy to walk around. People were friendly. There were cute bookstores. So in Chengdu, we saw the pandas, which is the main draw in the area. And then we also did a food tour. And I highly, highly recommend this company called Lost Plate Food Tours. They do them all throughout China, and they also do multi-day tours where they actually take you to different cities. And
Wow.
some of their experiences involve going to somebody's house and being cooked a meal or going to learn how to make tea a certain way. But even just the dinner food tour we did with them was absolutely outstanding. That food still lives in my mind. It was, and I can't handle a lot of spicy food. The Sichuan spice is more of that numbing, like sour spice, rather than the burning where you like can't lay down afterwards.
Yes.
or your chest is hurting. That it was so good. And our guide, Georgie, took us to a local market and asked the lady, like, what are some peppers they can take home to add to their own meals at home? And
That's fun.
It was so fun. And we went to places we'd never stepped foot in. So highly recommend Lost Plate Food Tours and the Panda Base. Even if you centered your trip around China for those things, it would make sense.
Worth it.
And Chengdu is only about an hour and a half flight from Hong Kong. It's like south middle. So it's fairly easy to get to once you arrive on the continent.
Okay. Do you remember what that food tour cost? We love to do numbers here because that's what makes it easy for people to, to emulate the trip.
I think it was around $65 a person for.
That's it for all those places?
For 6 places, all drinks included, and a tuk-tuk that took us around. Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah. It was
How
great.
was the tuk-tuk riding through the streets?
It was really fun. They were like, do you want a beer? And I'm like, sure. And they're like, okay, get in the tuk-tuk. I'm like, I can take these things with me. And they're like, yeah, you can. You're not driving. Okay.
That is amazing. This actually leads me to a follow-up question that I don't think is even on our questions. But when Mary Ellen was recently in St. Kitts, she realized they did not have enough cash because you're supposed to tip everybody. And it was a really awakening situation for them. So now it's something I feel like we need to ask everywhere. Did you feel like this was a place you needed cash? Did they like US dollars? Should you get their currency?
Oh, very good question. So first off, China is a non-tipping culture. So we tried to always ask like if it was appropriate first, like at the hotels and things like that. And, but we were instructed in many cases it's a non-tipping culture. In China, they do not use cash. They hardly use cards. They are digital everything.
Well,
So, and I just posted on this the apps that you need to go to China. And the main payment processor is called Alipay. So it's sort of like your Apple Pay, your Venmo, your PayPal, your credit card all mixed in one. And Alipay can be used to pay individuals. They can pay you, or you can pay vendors, or you can pay in stores. We actually found that many retail locations did not take cards at all. They only took digital payments. So
well,
Wow. That's
load
important
up
to
your
know.
cards into Alipay, and just as long as you have your phone, you can get around wherever you need. And
okay,
I
don't
know it
let your
sounds a
phone
little,
die.
yes, don't
So
let
it
your
sounds
phone
like they have
die.
chargers everywhere in the middle of the forest.
If you go for a hike, you just plug in your phone in the forest.
So does it still charge your credit card? You can still earn credit card rewards because that's loaded into Alipay, or no?
Yeah. I still would earn the usual reward on my card, but there was a lot less flexibility. At the hotels, they would take whatever you gave them. But
Mhm.
every retail location and even food locations, it was all Alipay. And so what I recommend for people, download it before you go, upload your credit card before you go, because I tried to upload my Venture X and it declined it. I think Capital One declined it being uploaded. I was like, uh-oh. So I ended up uploading my Chase Sapphire Reserve, and that worked perfectly. And when you basically have to verify your identity to be able to use it. So I also had to upload my passport. And this is
Oh,
where people are
okay.
like, oh, like security and stuff. It's like, they already have, I have a visa. Like, they already have my passport. They have my phone. It's fine. Um, they're very strict in their systems. And I did not see or worry about any misuse. You just have to verify who you are. Once you have everything uploaded in Alipay, you can also use it within the other apps in China that you may need to use. So the other big one we use is called Didi. And some people may have heard of that. It's like the Uber or Google Maps or Uber Eats of many Asian countries, but you have to download specifically the Chinese Didi. And
Oh,
the cool thing about it is that when you call a ride, a Didi, they're super cheap. First of all, I think we took more than like an hour ride that cost $11 in
Oh my
Shanghai.
goodness.
Yeah,
what?
it's crazy. But in Didi, what's cool is that it speaks English to you. It's your interface is in English and the driver's interface is in Chinese. And so you can type in something, it'll translate it automatically to the driver.
That
So
is brilliant.
it was so helpful because you were confirming on your end where you're going, and they're confirming, and it made it really, really easy. The other thing we used in a lot of places is the Translate app. So Apple's built-in Translate app. I was always a Google Translate user before, and Google works intermittently in China. It's blocked in many places, even when you're on cellular. So just use the Apple one. Everybody knows how to use the Translate app. And if you pull out your phone and pull up the app, they will start speaking in it and it'll translate for you. There's certainly more English being spoken than when I went 18 years ago. But still the majority, it's not like Japan, it's not like Korea where you can turn around and somebody will speak English to you. Even in the
Mhm.
airport, when we were checking in, like we had to use the app because there were no English speakers at the desk. But we pulled out the app, she spoken to it, we said okay, and then we were able to communicate. So they're
That's
very
perfect.
adept at using the apps to communicate. And with those, really, with Alipay, Didi, the Translate app, and then WeChat. WeChat is their version of WhatsApp or the iMessage app.
Okay.
And many of the hotels use WeChat so you can communicate with the front desk. So it's a super easy way. If you needed something, you would just type it in the WeChat. With those apps, you're set. You can get around town, you can get around the country, and you can feel comfortable in communicating, in payment, in getting a ride. So,
Amazing.
I
What
mean,
an
the last time
incredible
I
day and
went,
age.
It is. The last time I went, it was all cash. There were no iPhones. You had to either have a guide and a translator, or when you were at the hotel, you would have the concierge write every location you intended to go, and you'd hand it to the taxi driver. And then when you were done, you would kind of hand them the money, and they might have to pick out how much it was, because it's very, very hard to communicate. Now,
Wow.
it's all digital. You can communicate. It was so cool to be able to do that and get around on our own. It does. It gives you confidence. It gives you freedom. Yeah.
I want to circle back to some of the cool things that I saw that you guys did that were really unique. You took an ink block class. Tell us about that.
Yeah. So some of these activities were actually inclusions at the hotels, because the Aman hotels usually have these inclusions, or they'll have classes. So one of them was doing ink blocks, which was a traditional technique done in the southwest of the country. The southwest of the country has a large amount of minority groups, and they actually have different languages. And so some of those languages and people groups are still preserved, and some of their artwork is still preserved. And the ink blocking was one of their techniques. So that was surprisingly hard, but it was really fun. And we got to bring home our pictures as souvenirs.
It sounds like something they would do on Amazing Race. Like one of the challenges that they would do is you would have to print something. I swear they probably have done that.
I'd probably fail, because it was really hard to just get the ink from the block, and not all the in-betweens. There were lots and lots of redos.
Yeah, I am not artistically inclined that way. And I feel like I would end up with something that looked like a 2-year-old drew it, but I would try.
Yeah. They're very patient. They're very patient with us. So that's all we can ask for.
I appreciate that. Talk to us about making herbal tea sachets.
Yeah.
I've never actually said that word out loud before.
I think it's sachet. And
I think so too.
You could pick from a menu of different things. So they had herbs, an herb mixture to keep away colds, or an herb mixture to help you go to sleep. Yeah, I was like, I need one of each of these, please. And the really nice ladies would help us pick the mixture, and then we spent some time crushing it up and then putting it into a bag, which we also got to bring home. So we had a lot of souvenirs, which was really, really fun. And we still keep the little sachets with us. They're supposed to go on your pillow or in your bathroom or something to give you that herbal essence.
Oh, love it. Love souvenirs.
So
love
the
herbal
souvenirs.
Things.
I know. If you think like their history, we've got all the herbs. We've got teas. We did bring home some tea. We did a tea tasting of pu'er tea, which is some very fancy fermented tea that's made in the Southwest that I found out is popular in the Bay Area. So, all the tech bros are into it. So it's like
the tech bros.
The tech bros are into it. So they must be onto something that the Chinese have known for thousands of years. We did, what else? There's paper, there's stamps, so lots of very creative things. And then of course everything is made there, because they're the manufacturing hub of the earth. So everything that you buy is made there.
Yeah. Amazing.
Literally.
I think, and they clearly do such a good job, just from what I was looking in your highlights in terms of like the hotels and where you were staying, they do such a good job preserving history, preserving nature. Like somehow, even with millions and millions of people in these cities, like they still are taking the time to make sure these hundreds and hundreds of year old trees are alive and thriving. Is that a government thing? Is that the hotel that's making those efforts when you're staying there? Do you know?
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of a mix, like a private effort, some government effort. I think there's an increasing appreciation for the natural resources that China has, not just in an industrial sense, but like, wow, look at all this amazing beauty and history we have. And much of it, many things were destroyed. So I think the remaining things, that's now the focus of let's preserve these things. So the Aman in Shanghai, they were a little bit outside of the city. And I think between the hotel and some private investors, there was a town that was going to be flooded by a dam that was built in the early 2000s. But there was this ancient camphor forest and all of these historic villas and buildings that were still intact in this town. And God bless them, they were able to move hundreds and hundreds of these camphor trees. And the main one that they had right in the middle of the hotel was, I think, over 500 years old or over 1,000 years old.
Wow.
They actually have the documentary, how they did it, how they moved them, and the efforts that went into preserving that we watched in the little hotel video room, which is fun. So it was cool that the hotel was really built around this forest, and then these villas were, each hotel room kind of circled around these 800-year-old villas where you could go in and look at them. And some of them had art galleries or stores. So part of that was the private effort. The one that was in Hangzhou, the hotel took over some historic homes that were in this Westlake district. That's also a UNESCO World Heritage Site. They took over some historic homes, turned it into a hotel. So every hotel room was just a separate villa, like down this pathway where there are these tea plantations and these 1,000-year-old rock Buddhas that had been carved into the granite.
Oh my gosh. That's
so
amazing.
Again, that was kind of a mix of hotel plus government preservation in an area that was being preserved. And then in Lijiang in the southwest, the entire town is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And so they took over some buildings at the very top of the town and preserved that area. So again, really just built right in the middle of these, whether it was transported or it was there naturally, like really surrounded by these historic things, which you would think you would never have the experience. Like, who can go sleep in the middle of a UNESCO World Heritage Site? And
yeah,
what a special opportunity.
Very special. And that's why these hotels are very high end. And I also love they hire locals. So they hire people from the local community at all levels. So all the levels from the house cleaners to the managers. The managers were local from the area.
That's amazing.
And yes, and I love that because that means that the local community is benefiting from these hotels being here. And so then they can say it's worth preserving these things. So,
yeah, absolutely.
Now, in your trip planning, I know from looking at your Instagram that you used a travel advisor for at least a portion of planning your trip. Is that something that if someone is wanting to go to China, wanting to use a lot of points and miles to make it happen, do you think there is still room to use a travel advisor? Do you think that could still be helpful for people? Or is that really only for the portions of your trip that you use those gift cards, kind of paying with cash?
Yeah, so I'll give a shout out to Trippin' on Points, who's Connie Wang, I think is her last name. She's on Instagram. She's a points and miles person. I think she came to the first Travel More Con. And she is for a travel advisor, and she's also from Chengdu. So our last hotel that we stayed in Chengdu is called the Temple House. And it's an independent hotel. And by booking, I asked her about it, and she said, oh, if I book it for you, you'll get an upgrade to a suite, and I'll tell them it's your anniversary, and we'll do all these things. And she knows the manager. And so it was really, really cool. And I do recommend if you're not using your points and you're not going through a program where your loyalty makes a difference, then definitely book through a travel advisor. If you think about it, if you're like, oh, I would book through Amex Fine Hotels and Resorts, or I would book through, the Chase Edit portal or whatever they're calling their hotels thing these days, a travel advisor will get you those same benefits and more, but usually they have a personal relationship. So Connie, knowing the manager, at the Temple House meant that the manager came and met us when we checked in, said hello, sent us dinner recommendations, gave us $100 dinner credit, in addition to breakfast being included, in addition to the suite upgrade, and then actually emailed us afterwards because Tish had work in southern China the following week and gave her recommendations for where to eat, and then even connected her with another manager friend in Hong Kong and set up a dinner for her there. So it was just really cool having that connection. Nothing that we asked for or paid extra for. In fact, the rates were slightly lower than what was publicly available, and all that additional really special treatment because there was that connection. So I think would it make sense, again, booking independent hotel where your loyalty, it doesn't matter, you're not using points, go through a travel advisor. They're usually going to get you better than the public rate and lots of benefits.
Yeah.
There's
And
no
I love
cost to
seeing
you. Yeah.
Right. And she's a travel advisor specifically who clearly works with points as well. And I think that's like the best of both worlds, because if you work with somebody who doesn't understand the points obsession thing, they're not going to understand like some things we want to do on points, some things we need you for. She's clearly the perfect person. I had seen her in your highlights, so I just followed her today and I was like, oh, we might need to get her on the podcast sometime.
Oh yeah, she's great. And she totally gets it because we were like, we're doing the Aman thing. I did the Hyatt gift card thing and I need 2 nights at the Temple House. And she was like, boom. So she is really a good person for fitting in your hotels around the rest of your points bookings.
Amazing.
I also will say she saved us big time because we had originally booked dates to go to China in early May. And she connected with her local people and they were like, oh, that's a national holiday weekend. Like, stay away. Yes. National holidays in China. Do not go to China. And it was one of their smaller ones. The big one, of course, is Lunar New Year. Never go during Lunar New Year. They have another one in the fall called Fall Harvest or Harvest Festival. But this was one in May that we didn't know about. Again, even though Tish has been to China, I think 20 times now for work and pleasure, she didn't know about this one. And so we'd originally booked and they were like, do not come under any circumstances. Everything will be crowded and booked and more expensive. And it was true. Like the prices we were looking at were double the price. So again, shout out to Trippin' on Point. She saved our vacation. We were able to move things to March, still found the award availability. Prices were half the price. The weather was outstanding. Highly recommend somebody who has influence on the ground.
Yes. That's such a good insider tip.
Was there anything else as we're wrapping up that you can think of that you want to leave our listeners with for somebody who may be planning a first time trip to China? Any other tips? You've given us so much good information. Just knowing all of those apps is super, super helpful. And I think you even put an area on our radar that maybe people wouldn't initially think of when they're visiting China, which is really cool. So is there anything else you can think of to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, I would just say if you can find availability, Japan and Korea are absolutely outstanding, but they are very busy right now. And so if you can put it off and you can go, you can get the same experience in China for a third of the price. And if you're going to be in the area of Southeast Asia, consider going to that Yunnan province in the Southwest. There's direct flights from Bangkok and Hanoi. Again, places you wouldn't think of. And just expect to have wonderful hospitality, wonderful food, and great luxury for inexpensive prices. I think it is a tourist destination that's up and coming. And so try to get there while you can, because I think it'll be on everybody's radar in the near future.
I believe that, especially with that 10-day visa. I do have one last little question, which is most people would not want to go to China for the first time without seeing the Great Wall. So if they had to give up one place that you stayed in order to make it to, I'm not even sure geographically where the Great Wall is in relationship to the places you were this time. I have no
Yeah.
idea. Clearly, I'm amazing at geography. But what would you suggest? Because I think that almost anybody who went there would probably need to get that in at some point.
Yeah, 100%. And that is a great point. Because again, think it's the size and scope of the US. So think like Great Wall is up by Beijing in the north, New England type seasons, and very close to places like Seoul and Tokyo. So
Okay.
if you're doing the Northeast region, you're doing Tokyo, you're doing Sapporo, you're doing Seoul. Hey, pop on over to Beijing, see Beijing, the Imperial Palace, and see the Great Wall. If
Okay.
you instead are in Southeast Asia, if you're in Thailand, Vietnam, Cambodia, Laos, pop on up to the Southwest region, see the mountains, go to Chengdu, see Sichuan. That's how I would think about maybe separating it, is say like,
Okay.
I'm in New England and it's closer to these places, or I'm in the Southwest, it's closer to these places. If you want to do China on its own, like Hong Kong, Taiwan, Shanghai are all in that Southeast, think mid-Atlantic region and seasons.
That is
That's a
so
good way to
helpful for me to picture.
compartmentalize it.
I'm
Yes.
very visual. So when you say that, I can picture the map of the United States, and that really helps piece together for me kind of the areas. And I am thinking about going to Seoul. So I thought about jumping over to Japan, but I really
Yeah.
hadn't thought about jumping to Beijing to see the Great Wall. But it's very tempting when you go that far, especially
Yes.
if you're someone who doesn't go to Asia a lot. It's really hard to think, I want to do all the things. I want to see all the places.
Oh, yes, yes. But you're exactly right. If you're up in Japan and Korea, you're much closer to the Northeast than even the Northeast of China to the south part of China, right? Because again, size and scope of US, like Boston is really far from LA, but Boston's very close to Montreal, so it's kind of like those type
Right.
of
Little
geographical,
puddle
like
jumper,
spatial
just a quick
things.
flight.
Yes, exactly.
I did remember that you had a really good redemption on it was like a 300 something dollar economy puddle
Yes.
jumper flight, but you were able to find a very reasonable points redemption for that. Just tell our listeners really quick before we let you go. Sorry, this is dragging
No,
on
no, I
over
know
almost an hour at this point.
I'm on Pacific time, so I'm fine. I feel for you all. Yeah, so actually China, many of the Chinese airlines are in alliances. And of course, we know Cathay is in One World, but Air China is Star Alliance. And then many of the other, like China Eastern is SkyTeam. You can find really good point redemptions in economy in these short flights. And so one of the flights was Hangzhou to Lijiang. That is a heavily touristy flight. So these economy tickets, I think, were $370 a person. But because Air China is in Star Alliance, I ended up booking them. Gosh, one I booked through Air Canada and one I booked through Singapore. And I can't remember which is which, but it was something like in the teens, maybe like 12,000 or 13,000 points per person compared to $370 on this heavily touristy economy flight. So once you get to China, lots and lots of points options to get around if you're finding that your flights are expensive. Some of the flights were as low as 100, like our flight from Hong Kong to Shanghai was $120 a person. So no big deal. But if you're looking at flights that are more expensive, lots of alliances, lots of points availability.
So good for people to know.
Yeah.
Sounds like such an amazing trip. Thank you so much for spending your time with us today. Will you remind everybody where they can find you?
Oh, yeah. I'm mostly on Instagram, Points and Miles Doc. I also have a website, pointsandmilesdoc.com, where I have some free resources. I post all the links to the podcast episodes I'm on, so that'll be up there. But you can follow my adventures on Instagram.
And you can come
Amazing.
meet you at Travel
Yeah.
More
Yeah.
in New Orleans. We hope to see some listeners there. We got to meet some listeners last year at Travel More, and I hope that we get to meet even more this year. So we would love for all of us to meet up at Travel More.
Thank you, everybody, for listening, and we'll see you here next time.
Bye, guys.
Bye.
If you enjoyed this show today, please consider writing us a review or clicking 5 stars wherever you listen to your podcasts. And please subscribe and follow along so that you never miss an episode.
You can follow the podcast on Instagram or YouTube at Wonderland On Points Podcast. You can find me on Instagram at Family Travel for the Win with the number 4.
And you can find me on Instagram at Points to Wonderland.
If you're thinking about getting a new Travel Rewards credit card, consider using the links in our show notes. Using our links helps to support us and keep our podcast going so we can provide you with all the latest tips and tricks when it comes to traveling on points.
And if you aren't sure which card is right for you, shoot us an email at wonderlandonpoints@gmail.com. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you here next time.